I have released a monthly plan with me video for every month since the start of 2018, so no, I'm not gonna let camera trouble hold me back, but as you can see, I've already started my setup because all of this was filmed and that footage was lost. I don't know what my computer was doing, but it just decided, you know what, I don't like being on anymore. Just switched off and lost the footage, completely corrupted. So we're gonna pick up where I left off, not that we really got to see that part, which is a bit unfortunate. My reflections page and actions list has already been set up, and a new addition is this projects list. I just want to write down any of the projects that I'm working on in the month, kind of like as a record of accomplishment, hopefully, if I get them done. I'm thinking that maybe the day the project's finished, I'll write in here, and then the project can be listed there. Or I might just treat it like some kind of a checklist, but what I am currently working on is my monthly log. This one is an in-progress shot of it, so let's go to the time lapse and get this one sorted. Obviously, we do normally spend a little bit more time looking at the layouts individually, and we don't really get that with the first 2 pages given that loss of footage, so we're going to have a longer, more in-detail flip through in this video. A little bit of a change up, but let me know what you think. In terms of the monthly log though, one of the main changes that I have on this layout is making the calendar just a little bit smaller. Originally I was just going to do this vertically and have the same horizontal width that I've previously been having, but I wanted to add a little bit more space for decoration. In terms of the general theme that we're going with for this setup, it's kind of a cozy vibes type theme. At least that was the theme selected by our membership team. And originally when it came to cozy vibes, I was intending on drawing things, but I've been finding that I haven't been getting a lot of enjoyment out of drawing stuff in my journal recently. I think especially with how busy I've been feeling over the last month and a bit, flexing my artistic muscles in that kind of way hasn't been something I've been tending towards. And I think in general across this year, I'm really just tending towards more of like a stickers, tape, sticking stuff into my journal rather than drawing it out myself. Honestly, I'm not too sad about it though. I really like this kind of collaging look, and I specifically went with kind of a browns and pinks kind of color palette to make it feel warmer. Also, when I think cozy, I think very like wrapped up, snugged up in a blanket type thing. So I wanted to kind of bring this into the elements I was putting into the journal by putting boxes around everything. I know that probably sounds a little bit weird, but I like that idea of things being encased or enclosed and just making all of my entries feel a little bit cozy in that way. It might make more sense in my head, but I do like the way that it turned out. As said though, yes, in the filming of this video, I have had some difficulties. First, there were difficulties in trying to figure out how I wanted to execute on this theme. So do I want to go with stickers? Do I want to go with PET tapes? I effectively decided to use kind of a combination of materials that I've typically been using in my reading journal. That process of just trying to decide on the elements took quite a while, and then I got like an hour and a half into my filming, and my computer just turned off. But not even turned off properly, like it was still on because the light around the on button on my computer was still lit up, but the screens were black, they weren't picking up on any signal, I couldn't get it to turn back on, and sadly when I did just completely reboot my computer, the hour and a half of footage that I had filmed was completely corrupted, just not usable, to the extent where you couldn't even play it. You'd open it up and it was just like, yeah, there are no minutes of footage here. I'm like, well, that's unfortunate. The last time one of my devices did this to me, I went and purchased a new phone, so my computer should be concerned about its time in the household and whether it's coming to an end. To be fair, I'll probably just go and get some parts replaced or repaired or something rather than completely getting rid of it, but I am quite frustrated. As for my monthly log though, another one of the reasons that I decided to make the space on this just a little bit smaller is because I don't tend to use my monthly log. I really like having it there as kind of a record of what was going on throughout the month, but in terms of actually coming back and checking in with this on a kind of day-to-day, week-to-week basis, not so much. In part, this is because most of the stuff that's going on I can kind of remember, and outside of this, I also have a digital calendar where I keep any time-based events and appointments. I have tried to do away with it previously though, and didn't like not having it there, so it's sticking around for now. It's very much just a consistent work in progress in terms of finding a proper use for it. I'm hoping though, with the smaller amount of space that I've got for this monthly log, that once I go and populate it with my events and happenings and whatnot, it'll feel quite cozy. We won't have too much white space because it's just less space to fill up. But before we get into the next pages of the setup, we're just going to flip back and have a look at how May was going. The theme for May was May flowers, and I've very much enjoyed using this PET tape. It just makes the decoration so much easier. Very quick, very simple, but also very pretty. This one was another color palette that felt a little bit cozy, a little bit warm, especially because for me in New Zealand, May is in autumn, so if I'm doing a May flowers theme, I still want the color palette to kind of fit the vibe of the season that I'm in. But I've been really pleased with my use of my journal throughout May. I think I've been doing a very good job getting in here and writing stuff down. That's probably helped by the fact that I have had a lot going on, but also a lot going on that's complex enough that I felt like I needed to write it down. Which feels a little bit interesting because typically when I'm busy, I just neglect my journal completely, and there have been parts of the setup that haven't gotten as much use as I would have liked, but overall I think it's been doing quite well. So that I have enough space to wrap up the month, I just have one extra spread here, which I can use to put in those daily logs. And then after that, we're into the pages for June. There are a few different things that I'm changing up in June, some of them already having happened, but we'll talk about that in the flip through. The next layout we're setting up though is my work output space. And the first change that we're doing for this one is rather than putting a list view for all of the things that I need to do, I'm putting in a calendar view instead. The main reason for changing this one was just novelty. I like to change things up every so often just to keep it feeling fresh. But also the reason that I wanted to do a calendar for this one is that it would take up more space, and that meant that I had one less side of the Dutch doors that are part of this layout to fill in. That might seem a little bit strange, but I promise there is method to the madness. This is going to be the last month that I have in this journal, and I know that with the amount of space that I've got left, I can be a little bit more flexible in terms of the amount of space that I'm using. So having an extra page for my work outputs layout isn't going to be too big of a deal. In terms of drawing up the grid for the monthly calendar, you might be worried at this stage because there are 8 boxes across rather than 7, but that's because one of those boxes is going to be for like a weekly summary kind of overview of deadlines that I'm setting for myself that don't have a specific day to be done, but I just want to have them done that week. In particular, what I'm thinking about here is for my course and community that I'm launching. Those ones are coming out in June and I'm so excited. If you want to be one of the first people to hear about it though, there is a link in the description box that you can join up to hear more about it. But I thought that on this calendar overview page in particular, I wanted to timeline out the things that I need to do in preparation for that release. Along with that, we're also going to have all of my other content pieces on here, so YouTube videos, perks for the memberships, podcast episodes, whatever else. Effectively anything content-wise, it's going on this calendar. You'll have seen for each of the headers that I'm doing in this setup, they look like typewriter font on craft paper, but this is actually printed off onto a brown paper bag, literally just by taking a brown paper bag and sticking it to a piece of regular cartridge paper, and then printing things off from Microsoft Word. This is one of my favorite ways to do headers in lettering styles that I don't want to have to try and recreate myself, and I thought that the brown paper in particular worked really nicely for the theme. The only fiddly thing is then having to rip them all out and stick them into the journal. Maybe what I need to do is get craft sticker paper and use that instead. I don't know where to buy that though. Probably requires some investigation. As I do with most themes that require me to stick a whole bunch of elements in, I used quite a range of adhesives. I have a list and links to all of the things that I used in the setup in the description below. I've tried to organize them in the best way possible, so grouping like items, but the majority of our supplies either came from the Washi tape shop, Journal Say, or Stationery Pal. If you did want to nab yourself anything from any of those stores, I of course have discount codes for you, which are down in that description box as well, because we love savings. One of the things that isn't changing about my work outputs layout though is the use of Dutch doors. This time around though, rather than having just one Dutch door, I have multiple, so I set them up as waterfall tabs, or waterfall Dutch doors. Effectively, the first Dutch door is the narrowest, whereas the next one is a little bit wider, meaning that from the calendar view you can see all of the different pages along that right hand side. In terms of what I'm setting up on this first Dutch door though, this is going to be my checklists for the epic goal space and for my videos and memberships. The videos and membership spaces are going to be the same style as I've had previously, just a space to break down all of the tasks that I have to do for each piece of my video content and all of my membership perks, whereas the space for epic goals is going to be a checklist of the things that I want to do before we have our full release. Things like getting feedback from the founding members and actioning those things, making sure all of the spaces are set up right, that the resources have been loaded properly. I want to break that list down, make it really actionable, make it really bite-sized so that I can get everything sussed before release. If you were looking for a way to use that kind of a layout in your own journal, this could be something like a projects list, or really just some kind of themed checklist. But I think that having all of those in one place is just going to be really helpful for keeping track of what needs to be done. These aren't the only pieces of content that I put out though, so I'm going to need to have some spaces to organize those as well. Flipping on over, this spread is going to be for the Planner Pals podcast and also for the photos that I share on Instagram. I haven't been super great with my Instagram sharing this month. I prepared all the photos, it's just writing the captions for the posts. I don't really enjoy writing all that much. I don't think that I'm not good at it, it's just that I'm not fast with it. And thinking of things to write about that aren't just a kind of description of what's in the picture, because I don't know how helpful that actually is, I just find it a little bit tricky. I would like to get a little bit more consistent with my sharing over there though, and having a space to plan the photos that I want to put out is really useful in making sure that it actually happens, even if this month I haven't been as consistent as I'd like to be. In terms of the space on the bottom side of that right hand page, I was kind of toying around with the idea of turning this into some kind of a brainstorming space, but I figured that I'm probably not going to use that, so rather than setting up a space that I inevitably don't end up using, I just decided to fill it in with more decoration. The nice part about this kind of cozy collage type theme is that I have a bunch of different papers that I can use that already kind of look like they've been collaged on anyway. It makes for a really nice base in terms of the collaging. Those ones in particular came from Journal Say, and I feel like I don't really talk about Journal Say enough considering how many of their supplies I actually use, in particular in my reading journal, but because a lot of the materials we're using here I also use in my reading journal. If you wanted to grab yourself something from Journal Say and you wanted to save a bit of money, you can use code JashiiCorrin at checkout. If you're into the more kind of vintage inspired things like I'm using in this setup, then they have plenty of those, but they also have a great range of ones that have a lot more of like punchy colors as well. I actually have an order from them on the way and I'm very excited to get it because it is completely filled with things that have those punchy color palettes. On to another new addition for this monthly setup, and that is a party planning space and a packing list. I think this really just highlights the benefits of bullet journaling, honestly, because you put in the things you need for any given month and you don't include the stuff you don't. For instance, I'm not going to need a packing list every single month because despite the fact that I am taking a lot of trips this year, I do have every second month off from taking a trip. Similar idea with a party planning space. I don't plan a party for every single month, so I don't need one in every monthly setup, but Vogel's birthday is in June, and for his birthday this year, I'm organizing him a Taskmaster. If you haven't heard of Taskmaster, it's kind of like a game show type thing. It's quite funny, but effectively there are a range of different tasks for the contestants to do, and then depending on how well they do it, or how well the Taskmaster thinks they did them, they get points for their efforts. The way we're going to do this for Vogel's birthday is that I am both the task master and the task organizer, so the person who plans the tasks and the person who judges the completion of the tasks, mainly so Vogel can actually get involved in playing along with these tasks on his birthday. I'm going to organize the party attendees into teams and they're going to compete against each other, but because there's probably going to be a lot of working parts in it, I wanted to have a space to plan it out properly. On the right hand side though, this is where I'm putting in that packing list because I'm going to be going to Melbourne in June. Another one of my Melbourne trips that is very much focused on helping my parents move because later this year they are moving to New Zealand. I don't go and populate the packing list in this video, but I'm probably going to want to do that sooner rather than later. I know that June is going to be a very busy month for me, so I want to make sure I'm as prepared as possible, really so that I can hit the ground running with everything that needs to get done, which means effectively having all of these layouts fully populated, ready to go before the month starts. Another change up that I was considering for the month ahead was doing weekly layouts rather than dailies, and if you'd like to see a video on that, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up. I'm effectively going to take that as a vote to see if people would be keen in seeing a video like that. As promised though, having a closer look at these layouts. So in terms of the reflection, we obviously have the panel decoration down the side, and then I just separated it into these various size boxes. I didn't really think too much about how much space I really wanted in each of them, but I think this should be enough space for each of the sections. So we have wins, lessons, needs, memories, challenges, and to try. So the top four here are really about kind of thinking about the month that will have happened at that point, so June, whereas the needs and to try is more about thinking about the month ahead. So for July, what kind of things will I need in my journal? What kind of things would I want to try in my journal? That kind of stuff. In terms of the action space, mainly it is this section here, which is where my list is going to be. I did draw another box out here, but that was really with the intention of doing the layering over the top. Kind of so this space didn't look too empty, and also I figure if my list does go over, I have a little bit of space there, I can write some actions. In terms of the projects list, this isn't going to be just goals related, but rather all projects that I'm going to be working on throughout the month, though the first two will probably be related to my goals. Again, decorative panel along the side, a whole bunch of collaging like we have in the rest of the setup. After this one, we have the monthly log. Now I call it a monthly log, technically it's like a cyclic overview, because my cycles are 4 weeks or 28 days. It just helps me think about time a little bit better, because when you have these like awkward little tail ends and stuff, and trying to get an appreciation for how the weeks translate into a month, it's just a little bit tricky for me. Whereas if I deal with it in terms of 4 weeks, then I know that each week is like 25% of the time I have. Again though, we've got some collaging. This piece of tape down the bottom indicates when I'm not going to be around, so my time away to visit my family. After this one though, then we're into the work outputs. So I have a space for things that I want to do in the week, or things that I think are like due during the week, kind of just to give me some guiding principles as to what I should be working on at any given time. And then this will be my content calendar. The pages that follow this are waterfall tabs or waterfall Dutch doors. So this is a shorter page, then a slightly longer, then a full page. But each of these just kind of elaborate on the pieces of content that I'm going to be putting out. So we have the stuff related to epic goals and the checklists that I'm going to write for those, a space to outline what I need to do in terms of video content, things that I'm going to do for my memberships and fulfilling their perks. And then over the page we have photos, mainly for Instagram, and the Planner Pals podcast. I thought I could use this space for kind of a brainstorm, but honestly I probably am not going to, so I just filled it with some more decoration. I might go back in and collage a little bit more here if I want to. At the moment I'm pretty happy with it, but I might go add some more. And then after this we have some bonus pages, in particular Vogel's Taskmaster, or his kind of like birthday celebration that I'm planning, and a packing list for when I go away. I'm really chuffed with how these turned out. I am not so chuffed with the fact that we had some technical difficulties in terms of the recording, but if you are still on the hunt for June inspiration, then the playlist at the top is the next one to check out. That one has all of my previous June setups, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.